Now, the big Apple event is finally here, and while it streams from Apple Park, I'm joined by our tech editor, Ayush Alawadi, who's tuned into the event live to get you all the latest Apple updates. And Ayush, it seems that the event has begun just as we speak.
Absolutely, Abba, and the event has just started sharp, of course, at 10:30, and I'm watching the stream as all of us are tuned in to the Business Today TV show. And the big question we all have really that's on all of our minds is what can we really expect? Because this event seems to be all about three products, and we've discussed it on this show a long time ago, which is essentially the iPhone 13 lineup, the AirPods 3 perhaps, and of course the Apple Watch Series 7. If you're in the market for an iPad mini and maybe, well, a new MacBook, well, that might be at a subsequent event, and that we'll find out very soon. But the big complaint, Abha, that a lot of us in the tech community have is that a lot of these updates that we're expecting from Apple seem to be incremental and not necessarily monumental. So the question mark really about Apple events nowadays is two things. The first thing being the fact that there's a lack of innovation from Apple. Some of the features that we're expecting today, for instance, the 120 Hertz display on the Pro models is something Android devices and Android manufacturers did all the way back in 2017. So, we're hoping that there is some sort of innovation there. And if you're in the market for a new iPhone and you just purchased one last year, well, then I'd say wait it out and maybe wait for an upgrade a little later. But we'll know as we watch the event what really comes up from Apple Park.
All right, excited to hear what some of those incremental changes will be. Will today's announcement, Ayush, take the focus of all of the legal and regulatory issues Apple's been facing of late?
But that's an interesting question, because no matter what they announce today, the tip of the iceberg seems to be the recent judgment in the Epic versus Apple lawsuit. And that's not all. They face legal and regulatory issues in South Korea, in Japan, and of course also in the EU, and now also in India, as we've reported on Business Today. But the Epic versus Apple lawsuit seems to be the bone of contention. What really happened in that, in a nutshell, is that a court in the US ruled that Apple's practice of charging the Apple tax, so to speak, or the 30% commission that they charge on the App Store, well, I'll just explain what that is for our viewers. If you go on the App Store and you purchase an app and it costs 100 rupees, well, then Apple until now would charge 30 rupees commission on that, and the developer would get only 70 rupees. Epic took Apple to court for this. Now, the court ruled that this whole practice and the way the App Store is and the rules have actually been created by Apple is not an illegal monopoly, so to speak, but the fact that you have to pay within the App Store has sort of been quashed, and Apple really has to ease their payment rules. So now, effectively, unless there is an appeal by Apple, though Epic is appealing the ruling because they wanted to talk about the predatory practice or the abuse of dominance by Apple in this particular ecosystem of things that Apple has created, this closed wall garden. But, well, now based on that ruling, you can have an external payment mechanism. That means you can purchase the app perhaps outside of the Apple App Store. And this really is monumental in terms of what's happening in big tech, a David versus Goliath fight, developers versus big tech companies, and that's something we'll be tuned into on Business Today.
What about the concerns, Ayush, surrounding privacy, security, and how is Apple responding to some of those concerns?
So, Abba, it's an interesting question because Apple has always positioned themselves as the bastion of privacy. That's been one of the tenets that they really rely on. But the issue over here is iOS 15 is the update that a lot of iPhone and iPad users, in fact, they are talking about iPad OS at the event as we speak right now. And the update that's coming up in iOS 15, a few days ago, there was talk about a feature which was to essentially with the intention of preventing child exploitation. Now, what that essentially meant was that Apple was thinking of going through your photos on your iOS devices, and in an encrypted way, in a sort of in what they call neural hashes, they would have been able to flag off if there was any sort of content which was related to child pornography or child exploitation. But that sort of move, after privacy advocates really were up in arms about how that goes against what Apple stands for, they have backtracked on that and they have delayed, well, the release of that feature. But also when it comes to security, we knew what was happening with the Pegasus leaks as well, and the recent update, which actually a lot of us and anyone tuned in should definitely update their iOS devices to 14.8, because that is the only way that Apple would be beefing up the security around their iOS devices. So when it comes to privacy and security, is this the Apple of yesteryear? They still have a very strong stand on it. It's only a matter of interpretation, Abha, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of announcements actually are made at this event. But like we said, we sort of know what the devices will be like, and there will be a subsequent event in the days to come.